Hey everybody, welcome. It's Lotus, Art of Sacred Embodiment. We are going to be embarking now on the new era of some of what I'm going to be bringing forth. It's not really new. I've already been working with relationships and partnership, moving towards divine union. You can go back into I believe it's in the playlist, and some of those more introductory videos are there. And we're going to be working more specifically towards our divinity and the evolution of our divinity in the construct of our evolution within relationships, using and allowing the container of relationship to be how we grow. And most of us do this all the time anyway, because relationships are one of the most powerful forces for our change and transformation. And yet we're going to be focusing more on romantic relationships and the phases and stages of our maturity and mastery within that context. So you will see that in the past I have worked with sprinkling a little bit, karmic relationship, conscious relationship, sacred union, or partnership and divine union. We're going to be hanging out in those conscious to sacred tiers a little bit more. And yet, what I want to talk about today is something that I don't usually talk about because, for a number of reasons. However, we're going to venture into an overview today from my perspective on twin flames. And what I want to bring forth is mainly that twin flames go back in history, right? They are written about in ancient times. And the power of the twin flame to change our humanity, to change our frequency on this planet. I think that there's been a lot of, I personally have had a lot of resistance to this template, and primarily I think because I didn't understand the depth of it, number one, until I was ushered into its experience and as a path of my own development. And the ways in which perhaps it has been understood was not always aligned with me. So what I want to do just in this video is I want to just begin to highlight, and then we're going to go into it more in depth, and we may do that over on Patreon. I might do some of it here. It's undecided yet. I'll see what I'm guided to do. But what I want to share here is just kind of the fundamentals of the twin flame. And from the historical standpoint and even from the scientific standpoint. This is what I find really fascinating, and I feel like for me, it allowed me to drop deeper into surrender and willingness, I guess, to even talk about it or use that term. For a long time, I didn't even really want to use that term because I felt like I wasn't aligned with how it was used. So, the twin flame or twin souls, the way in which it's literally documented, right, going back to Plato and Aristotle, going back to even ancient scriptures, is it is one soul that is split into, let's just say, two epic journeys, right? One soul is split into two souls, and they begin this love affair, this journey back home to find the other, right? To find its other half again. We hear a lot of these terms, and our other half, our better half, which that's a little bit more of a inaccurate term, but our other half, feeling incomplete without a partner, feeling like a part of us is missing when we lose a love, right? And these are ways in which we can understand that we've all been separated from first the original source, from the divine. And then we have been separated from our own wholeness. Now, every religion, maybe not every, I'll just talk about the ones that I really know of, right? So Christianity talks about this, Judaism talks about this, many of the old folklores and mythologies talk about this. In India, the Vedic teachings talk about this. And we have archetypes that have shown us the necessity for that companion of the polar opposite of the masculine and feminine principle. Now, the masculine and feminine principle is the overarching, right, polarities of all of creation. So, right, there's this coming together constantly in order to create of the masculine and feminine coming together. This happens, we see this in the universe, we hear about it in creation myths, all of that. So within Christianity, we see the archetypes that really carried this, not in traditional or esoteric, or rather the exoteric Christian traditions, which is more organized religions, but in the Gnostic and exoteric and the non-canonical Gospels, we see the archetypes of this sacred union of these two halves reuniting in Jesus and Mary Magdalene. In the Eastern Indian traditions, we see this in Shiva and Shakti coming together. And there's like this powerful image that was going around a long time ago, and I used it a number of times before I actually really knew why I was called to it, right? You've got Shiva on one side of the body and Shakti on the other side of the body. And they're the same being, but the two polar opposites, right? The masculine on the right, the feminine on the left. And then in Judaism, we also see this in the Shekinah, right? God and the Shekinah. And that Shekinah is the presence of God. It is the feminine principle. And within Judaism, we actually even, one of the teachings is that one of the highest, most elevated times for a couple to come into sexual union is on Shabbat. Because that is the time when that merging, that God presence and that communion is taking place. And so we see even within that the relevance and the potency of sacred sexuality. Now, we also see this in a lot of the Eastern Indian teachings. We see this within the Tantra teachings. And I'm not talking about the way that Tantra has been commercialized in the West, but I'm talking about the inner, right? That inner path, because the path of twin flames or twin souls or same soul is in its highest expression. It is the sacred marriage, the inner union. It is the inner alchemy. And the path of and towards divine union in, I believe, its highest coding has everything to do with us coming into our wholeness first, our right alignment and balance of our inner masculine and inner feminine, where we have healed, that's my phone, where we have healed the divisions and the divides, and where we have learned to be in a deep inner harmony and balance based on understanding our elemental expressions and our deeper right alignment, and honoring both the outer motion and the higher mind with the inner realms and the intuition, right? Thoughts, emotions, spirit, and soul. In the Gospel of Thomas, there is one of the teachings that talks about, I don't remember all of it, I have it written down here, but I'm not going to go into all of my notes right now. When the inner becomes the outer, when the left becomes the right, when above becomes below, right? When the male becomes the female. So what Thomas is talking about is we have to come into merging and balancing and harmonizing all of the dualities and polarities within our being. And this is part of what elevates us and grows us and matures us from a mere human into our divinity. Fascinating, beautiful, beautiful all across the board. Now, this is the time, right? Why is this the time? We hear a lot about the divine masculine and the divine feminine. For years, it started out, right, with the sacred feminine, right? The rise of the sacred feminine, the rise of the sacred masculine. And then it shifted into the rising of the divine feminine, the rising of the divine masculine. So what we see in those collective consciousnesses and thought forms is that there was an evolution in consciousness where we were rising, we were recognizing, we were beginning to remember ourselves in these elevated consciousnesses. Now, the divine aspects of us, they are waiting for us. And there are very few, if really any, who have accessed that level, to my knowledge, at this time. And yet, this is the precipice that we're on. Now, does everybody have a twin? I couldn't tell you that for sure, right? What I do believe is that there are those who are forerunners that carry the coding of sacred relationship, that walk a path of sacred intimacy and relational intimacy. which has been one of the expressions of the path that I have walked forever. And as a forerunner in general within the ascension, terminology, this did not come on my radar until like 2017, 2018, in a way that I had to sort of look at it head on. I was always working with sacred union and my marriage of 22 years. When we got married, we definitely held that container for ourselves, and it's continued, right? Because then I've had to go through the inner marriage and the inner union, and that was the key that taught me, like, whoa, this paradigm of twin flame is real, and it is powerful and potent, and it expedites our awakening process. So I believe that there are those who are carrying, and myself included, who carry these codes that are creating a new baseline of what romantic relationship is. It is healing the divisions and the woundings of the masculine and feminine. And it is teaching us how to be in reverent, devotional relationships based first on self-love and self-honor and devotion to God in whatever way we relate to that force. And then that power, when it comes together, becomes, exponential. Now, the fascinating thing about this is, and I'm not going to go into the details of it here, because this is just sort of this little overview, is that quantum, the quantum science has illustrated this through working with protons. And they have been able to track exactly what happens when one whole consciousness is split, and then how those two that were of the same fabric, we could say of the same soul, how they operate then independently and yet always entangled and connected. And we'll talk about that at another time. So it's working within the morphogenetic field. And what I love is when, science, I'm not a big science person, but I do love when science meets spirituality. Like, I just find that it's like, yes, of course, right? Of course. But I know that a lot of times in our mechanical, culture and thinking that we've been programmed into, most of the time we want science to verify things, and yet, science is only, and verification can only really, you can only verify so much in the physical, whereas the realm of spirit and soul knows and can experience and sense and feel with faculties that science cannot, is limited to. So anyway, so we're going to start diving into this a little bit more. And it's not necessarily, I'm not going to be working strictly with the twin paradigm unless people want mentorship. That'll be a different thing. But what I want to do is I want to set up that the twin soul relationship has deep, deep, deep evolutionary and spiritual merit and power. And it is one of the biggest energetic forces that is here to revolutionize our planet, because it is all about love. It is all about remembering that all of life is love. And it is about learning to not just love and receive love, but to be love. Because the twin journey requires deep connection with the divine and devotion to life, right? The universe, God, goddess, however that shows up. And for me, I have witnessed in myself and others that the relationship with God, then, with the divine, transforms and deepens, and the faith and trust of that transforms and deepens the more that we come into inner union and divine union, because divine union does not stop at the relational intimacy of sacred union. It goes far beyond that. What we are unifying and harmonizing and balancing is, it's like, where does it end? I don't know, right? I don't know. I'm still, we're babes. We're babes in the woods right now. And the more that we align from the inside out and listen and follow, we literally are living the mysteries, right? The mystery teachings. They are living through us. All traditions within the esoteric and mystical paths had the mystery schools, the mystery experiential teachings of direct experience with the divine and with God. And now we are all temples holding our own court, so to speak, and holding the templates of the living mysteries within us, the archetypes, the blueprints, the codings. And they are activating and guiding us from within. And this is the direction of my mentorship moving forward, accessing your inner mystery realms, particularly within the context of love and relationship and intimacy and connection, and all of it held by this divine intelligence and wisdom that is evolving through us as us, so that we can become and remember why we're here, who we are, truly. And that's going to go far beyond our personalities and our mundane experiences in the 3D realm, right? All of that is getting stirred up because we're more than working with survival and just getting by, and becoming worker bees. Like we are far more than that. We are here for more than that. And for what I bring, this is the next path, the next journey that I'm now receiving the mandates. It's time. I've done, the baseline and much of the inner work, and it doesn't stop. But now it is time to be introducing this more fully, and those who resonate will resonate, right? And that's the beauty of it. So, moving forward, you're going to be hearing, we're going to still talk about some of the general things in the, in our evolutionary process, and yet I'm going to be moving in this direction, and my intention is to make it useful for all of us, to use the teachings, to use the higher consciousness of the divine relationships, and how do we step into that in the here and now, in the relationships that we're in, or in the relationships that we're wanting to create, in the partnerships that we want to deepen, that we want to expand, right? Or in the recognition that we're in karmic relationships, and those have just seen we've grown, right? We've grown wherever to the degree that we can. And now if you want to grow further, right, then we understand the phase and stage of the relationship we're in, and how to hold them as sacred, and how to recognize when we outgrow a certain phase, which might mean that we grow apart from people that we have loved and might still love. It doesn't have to be dramatic and traumatic before it shifts. But we're taking the higher teachings now, and I'm going to start bringing them down so that we can all access this deeper healing, this deeper unification and holy wholeness, as I call it, within ourselves and within the context of our intimate relationships and partnerships. So I'm going to start going, I've got like pages of these notes I was trying to organize, and I'm going to be bringing forth more of the scriptures, which some of you may or may not know. My first 10 years of my awakening journey was very heavily influenced by a lot of the non-canonical and Gnostic teachings in Christianity primarily. And little did I know, right, what the foundation was creating for me. I didn't understand why I was kept going down these, down these paths of religion, because I was not a religious person at all. And yet I knew that they were for a purpose. And it's only been really within the last, I would say, 6-7 years that I've recognized, oh, okay, this was a huge part of why this was guided, right? I connected the dots. Always connect the dots of your spiritual journey. They hold so much information. So, yeah, I'm excited about this. I've been a little apprehensive about it as well. I've talked about it. I've been very resistant to it. And I am receiving the mandate, and so I am listening and surrendering and divinely aligning with what I'm being shown and given. And now is the time. So I am, I'm honored to begin sharing this here and on Patreon. All right. Have a fabulous, fabulous day, evening, wherever you are. And don't forget that this next Wednesday is the Remembering Your Wholeness, and we're going to be working with Loving Your Sacred Shadow. So registration will be listed below on the link, and I ask people to register by Tuesday of next week, right? And then we have a live class, and replays are always available for registration if you've registered. All right. Many blessings. Much love. Bye.